recovering, emotionally and, physically from that, that kind of grueling meet. So, well, this week, Christina, is really how, hopefully we got our legs underneath us and, you know, um, that SEC meet behind us.
On
And
behalf of the NCAA Track and Field and Cross Country Sport Committee, congratulations to you and your student athletes for qualifying for this year's NCAA Division I portrait.
I'm hearing something else.
Say thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So anyway, so I guess my thing was we'll see how we feel this weekend going in, but we're a resilient group. Kids are excellent athletes that we have going, and so hopefully we'll be ready to roll.
For both of you coaches, now that you've got a road trip under your belt, I know we talked about you guys spending time at home a lot this season. How does having one road trip now down help you going into this next bigger one?
Buck, you want to take that one?
You want me to, I mean, again, we kind of got that, that first meet out of town, out of our way, and I feel like we're, hopefully back to normal of, a team that's done some traveling and been in different facilities. So, we're going to do it a second week in a row. And, I feel like, I mean, it's a good question. I feel like we'll be okay. I definitely think it was somewhat of a factor that we had been in Tyson the whole year and we did not get on the road. And so I feel like after being on the road, I feel like things feel a little bit more normal. I don't know how Chris feels. I know I do. And it's, it's not a factor now for the coaching staff. So.
To echo that, I mean, I think obviously it's always good to get on the road. It's always good to be able to be out of your comfort zone, I guess, if you will. And I think we were successful there. And despite being the first time out, and I think we got to do a better job with that. We just can't stay in our building because competitions are elsewhere. We got to be accustomed to getting out and being able to go out and compete. But this is our second week in a row of being out of our building and being able to go out and compete with the best in the country, and I think we'll be okay.
And then I have one more for Coach Johnson about Kaylin and where do you feel like she's at with her training since coming back and having a good showing at SECs, and how prepared do you feel like she is now for NCAAs?
Well, I mean, obviously, this young lady's been to Olympic Games, so obviously she's used to being under pressure, if you will. She had a little niggle, if you will, early on in the season. I think she's recovered quite well. I mean, obviously, it takes time when you're trying to compete with the best in the country, and these other young ladies are fantastic athletes as well. So I think she's getting there. Obviously, we'll see how well she's ready to compete and contend for a title. But I know she's in much better shape than she was at SECs, and she got a couple of races under her belt. So I know she'll be ready to go out and compete to the very best of her ability.
Courtney, did you have a question?
Sorry, my mic was muted there. Yeah, I sorry I hopped on a little late, but I didn't know if Coach Buck had answered this already. But if you did, I apologize. But how does, obviously finishing as a runner-up in SEC Indoor, how can you improve on that performance and hopefully go out and win an indoor title for your team? How do you kind of just propel and get better and use that to motivate this team and go out there and hopefully win the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in a team meeting last week. We talked about the fact that, hey, great athletes, great teams, usually rebound after a tough loss. I mean, I could look at everybody in that room, even Ruben Reyna, who was a high point of the and won the Harper Trophy for the SEC as a high point scorer for 20 points. The SEC mile champ, the whole bit. even he can look at it like going, I didn't have my best meet. And I think that's kind of how we approach it this year. Our kids, nobody felt great about our performances for the most part. Maybe Jordan Anthony did a little bit, but I pointed Jordan Anthony out. He didn't make the final of the 200 on Thursday night, so he didn't feel like he had the best meet. So I think that's the theme for us, is the fact that, hey, our best meet is still ahead of us, and now that, hey, we had 17 out of our 27 athletes never being in an SEC environment. 17. Our freshmen and our transfers had never been into an SEC championship. So think about that for a second. 17 out of 27, we still nearly won the meet. So there are positives about it. But our veterans, our vets, all 8 of them, all scored. Okay. And so now that we get that under our belt and we've tasted that emotion, because really in some respects, the Razorback Invitational, the Tyson were deeper meets 1 through 8 than the SEC meet. But it means more in the SEC when you have to actually race, not time trial, but actually race and produce a point. And so that's what we don't experience during the year because of how our sport is set up. Now we have to produce points. And that's a different animal than, it's no different than the Indianapolis 500, okay? All week long, they time trial to see what pole position you're going to get, what position you're going to get in the race. And the speed is unbelievable. But once you get into the Indianapolis, race, the speed drops because now it's just racing, right? And there's crashes and all that stuff. So that stuff doesn't happen during the time trials. This is what happens at an SEC and an NCAA championship. It's about, it's about racing and it's about scoring points. So we get that under our belt. Now we're going to give it a shot to see what we can do.
Thanks, Coach. And then kind of on the same lines of questioning a little bit for Coach Johnson, you guys won the meet, won an SEC championship. How do you take that momentum and know it's not the, the final goal for you guys, that you want to win a national title as well?
I think any championship you win, you don't take it lightly, but I think this is a different championship. SEC championship is one thing, and now we're faced with the rest of the nation along with the SEC. So obviously we gotta have our ducks in a row, if you will, and we got to reset, and we got to figure out a way to make it to the finals and then score big points in the finals. And it's gonna be a challenge, but I think the athletes are ready for the challenge. And I think we look at it as 2 separate meets because it's a different competition, and making it to the finals and scoring when you get to the finals is critically important to be able to win a championship. And it's great that we're ranked number 1 and the men are ranked number 1, but we understand what it's going to take to go out and garner a number 1 title. I mean, winning a title. And so we're gracious and we're excited about the SEC, but we've kind of put that behind us for right now, and our focus is on the NCAA meet.
And a quick question follow-up for you, Coach Johnson. We talked to Anna Podgill recently and did kind of a story on her. And I know Coach Buck has Jordan Anthony, who's a 2-sport athlete for them, and she's a 2-sport athlete as well. What do you think 2-sport athletes do for you guys? I mean, how does playing something else help them, or does it hurt them a little bit? I mean, what is it like trying to coach them and get them in the track mindset, or how does it help versus, if that makes sense?
Well, make no mistake about it. And for what we do, I guess it helps in terms of mentality, but in terms of the sport itself, it kind of hurts it because they're not here 100% of the time. And the preparation, they spend more time in their first sport, if you will, than they do in track and field. And that goes for Jordan and our 2 athletes that play soccer. So just imagine how good they could be if they spent 100% of their time. Obviously, that's not possible, being a 2-sport athlete. But I mean, obviously, at least in my opinion, I can't speak for Buck, they're a little bit behind in terms of where they would be if they were just track only. but tremendous athletes with a great, great mindset. And I think the mindset is the biggest thing because they understand what it is to compete for a position, just a position. And I think that makes them much better when if you're fast enough, to Buck's point earlier, you get into the race, but then do you know how to race? And can you withstand some of the obstacles that goes along with racing, not just time trialing? So I think that's a bigger difference in their competitive nature, just because they have to hold a position and they don't have to be one of three or one of four, whatever the case may be. I think that sets them aside a little bit.
Thank you, Coach. I didn't know if Coach Buck had anything to add to that, just, maybe with Jordan and just, I know we've talked about him just a little bit, but I didn't know if you had anything to add to that as well.
No, I mean, you just look at the tremendous progress he has made since football has ended. The thing about him is he came in injury free. Last year, he had a foot injury. He hobbled through indoor track and then played spring ball and then went right into an operation. So, the guy really hadn't run since indoor last year. Be able to come in and focus in on just track every single day, doing the stuff that Coach Case has him do, blah, blah, blah. But he's still not where he could be. And he was good enough on Saturday and has run a great time, but he's a much better sprinter. And the more time that he can spend this spring at what we're doing, the faster, we leave the 60-meter dash after Saturday and go into the 100 outdoors. And, obviously, he's got great potential there, but the more workouts, it's like anybody, the more workouts you can string together without being hurt. I look at it like a math class. Take your hardest math class and then go ahead and not go for 2 months, and then try to come back into class and start where you left off. There's no way, right? And so that's kind of the same thing with this training block that Chris is talking about, that they missed it all fall. They're playing catch up. Okay. And maybe they can by the end of the year. But it's a process. And so that's how kind of I look at it. And, our main thing is keeping guys healthy now so they don't lose any training time because they've already missed the fall.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Thank you both. That's all I had.
Coach Johnson, as two-time defending national champions, what level do the next kids that are coming up and qualify this year want to continue that trend? And obviously the last 2 years were close with 4 points in Albuquerque and 5 points last year. Just what do the mindset of you, the coaching staff, as well as the kids go in when you're two-time defending national champions?
I mean, obviously they know that, so we don't have to continue to pound that into their heads. They understand what it's like, and no team, obviously, if you win a national championship, the next team wants to follow that, and it comes with a lot of pressure that goes along with that. But those are not things that we really focus on. We focus on the aspect of, number one, getting ready, and then obviously we feel like we're ready, then we got to go out and execute, and we just got to kind of calm the storm, quiet the noise. Unless we only can do what we can do. We can't control the other variables of the other teams and the individuals that they have. We got to go out and give our best efforts and see where that lands us. But I think they all want to continue tradition, and our tradition is winning. It's just like the men, and the expectation is high. And I just think that most people don't really understand what it's going to take to win a national title. And that's why we have a lot of it, and they have very few. And I just think that I think the fans and administration, everybody needs to understand that these athletes compete at a very, very high level, and they need to be supported in that way, and they need to be cared for in that way, and understand that this is a very difficult thing to do, and I think that we need more excitement around it. I think the media needs to be more around it. This is exciting sport, and you pass that flag every day. We got 51 national titles. We're the best sport on campus. Let's face it. So let's rally around that and give these kids the support and have the experience that that everybody else has.
Thank you. Coach Bucknam, in that regard, runner-up last year and then national champion in 23, but consistently have the top number of entries at NCAA Indoor. Just thoughts on being consistent in that regard and always being able to contend for a national title.
Well, I have the runner-up trophy right above my desk here, and I feel every time I see it, I feel like jumping off a cliff. So, it's that was a hard-fought runner-up position last year, but you come excruciatingly close. And once you've won, and I think Chris can speak for that, there's nothing is good enough except for that. So, but I can tell you when I look at Chris's practice and what they're doing, there's no talk about anything except doing your work that day. And I think that's the continuing thing, is that focus on your coaches, focus on what they're going to help you get done, so you don't have to be thinking so much when you get in there. You're going to be well prepared. I mean, nobody's talking about the runner-up position. I didn't mention it in my meeting. I bet you Chris didn't mention it, that we're defending champs. It's like this is a new team and a new group of athletes, and our goal is to be national champions. And looking back doesn't do you a whole lot of good, really, until maybe your career is over or whatever. But and you look back at your accomplishments. But for us, I don't know if I'm answering that question right, but maybe I lost my train of thought. But the runner-up thing doesn't. I mean, we're going in to try to win a title.
Thank you. And just the other part of that was just talk about how consistent you are with the number of entries, usually in the field and that type of thing, and spread out the events.
This is really one of the hardest meets, one of the hardest sports in the NCAA, because when you look at it, it's only 16 athletes throughout the entire NCAA get into this meet. So literally 16 athletes. And then you also look at the fact that on the men's side, there are, add the points up, 10, 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 times 17. I mean, there's 800 something points available. Only 40 to 45 points on the men's side could win it. That's how hard it is. Okay. That's how hard. We're disappointed that our distance medley relay team that ran 9.5 minutes. Okay. And to Chris's point, 9.5 minutes, and we missed that the last 12 spot. We were 13th by 0.03 of a second after a 9.5 minute race. And so, that's the splitting hairs that is happening, for all of our kids. So we do have the most qualifiers, I think, by 1 or 2. We probably have maybe over 25% of the SEC entries that are in the meet. I don't know if I'm exact right on that, but I think it's somewhere close. But it doesn't matter, because 1 through 16 is anybody can win in that 1 through 16. You look at the mile, it's for Ruben, 16 athletes are within 0.75 of a second. And so that's the margin of error that we have. And so it's you gotta be on, you gotta be dialed in, and you gotta have a little luck on your side too.
Thank you. Christina, do you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up with Coach Johnson. When you talk about how you feel like these athletes need to be and this team needs to be supported as, one of the best teams on campus, what does that look like to you? And does that come more from fans, from, the athletic department, all of the above?
I think it comes from the fans. I think it comes from the marketing of the programs. When you look at it, I mean, I think it comes from all things inclusive of that, because much to Buck's mention is that he got run up, and you know what most people ask? Well, what happened? Okay, they're not any other team to get run up, it'll be celebrated, but they say what happened. So I just think that the level we won at, it's very difficult and it's got to be appreciated. It's got to be celebrated. It's got to be held to a high standard. The SEC championships, these things are quite difficult to get. And we just added 2 more teams and it gets even more difficult to get. Talking about, well, on a 45 to 50 points could win a SEC bid. When you think about the amount of points available and how hard it is to garner those points. So I think from the media standpoint, it needs to be on the front page of the paper in the sports section. I really believe that's to be the case. It's an SEC championship. Let's be for real. So I just think that we don't get the coverage that we deserve and our kids deserve because they work just as hard as anybody else. And I think they deserve that.
Coach Bucknam, what's your perspective on that for your guys?
Well, I think it's a big ditto on what Chris said. I mean, you look at the value of our sport when you look overall amongst all the teams on our campus and what have you, and just look at the we got phenomenal coverage during the summertime of our Olympians, right, in Paris. I mean, Alyssa was over there covering all of our stuff. Okay, what else was going on during that time? I mean, we fill a big void in it, and it's year round. It's not just the NCAA meet, it's not just the SEC meet, indoor and outdoor, but then you go into the summertime and there's even more content, there's even more success. How many Olympians did we have? How many medalists did we have? I know 2 of our gold medalists on our men's team alone broke Olympic records on top of that. It was covered phenomenally, right? And then, but we need more people in our Tyson indoor facility. We need more people coming to our outdoor track. Those types of things that Chris mentions, it's not the media, it's what's happening on campus too. And, what would it look like if we got the same marketing as, some of our other sports? And could we fill that in? Because I can tell you this, Arkansas fans, they might not understand the sport completely, but they love the sport and they show up because it's the Hogs. It's not because of Henry Kiner in the long jump. They don't know who Henry Kiner is, okay? But they'll come watch him win a long jump. I mean, they'll come to meet. So it's incumbent upon us to have quality meets and make it worthwhile. But it's also incumbent on the people in Arkansas, in Fayetteville, and whatever, to know that there's special. These are special programs, and when we don't like tooting our own horn, we don't like to be braggios or what have you, but we're elite, okay, and to catch a few meets a year, we would love to have more fans in our building and feel like it's deserving of the product we put out. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. Thank you both.
Appreciate it. Anybody else with a question?